standards, and my job is to support elementary ELA for South Carolina in regard to the standards. With me, I have two of my colleagues, and I'll let them introduce themselves. We'll start with Stephen.
Good afternoon, y'all. I'm Stephen Corsini. I am the K-8 Social Studies Education Associate in the Office of Assessment and Standards. And thank you all for what you do every day and for taking time out of your day to be with us today.
And then next we have Brent.
Hey y'all, good afternoon. My name is Brent White and I'm your Elementary Education Associate for Science, K through 5. And again, welcome and thank you for being here.
We are so excited to bring you this webinar series for the next, I think, month and a half, where we're going to be taking a look at the strategy of close reading for the content areas for elementary generalists. Now, we may have some attendees in these sessions who are not elementary generalists, but we feel like this strategy could easily be transferable for our middle school and high school coaches as well. It's just that we typically support elementary levels, but definitely close reading is a strategy that transcends the elementary classrooms into the middle and high school classrooms as well. We've seen a lot of success with it in all educational settings. The QR code here on our next page links to our landing page. Now, Brent and Stephen are also going to drop that into the chat for you all. Our landing page houses all of the links that we will use over the next 4 sessions for our close reading webinars. So the boxes in that landing page, when you get that link that are highlighted in green are the boxes we will work with today. We tried to do a little color coding to help you out today. But the green boxes are the boxes that we will use today in this session. So just have those on your screen and maybe bookmark them for use in the next 3 sessions as we come to those. That close reading lesson or landing page will house our attendance form, our feedback form, but our slide decks, as well as any other resources that we mention throughout our sessions, just so you have one stop shop for all the things that we're able to support you with today. Additionally, we'd love for you to introduce yourselves in the chat. We've told you a little bit about ourselves, but if you all could take just a minute as you're accessing that link to the landing page and filling out the attendance, and let us know who you are, where you're from, and what you want to learn about today. So who you are, where you're from, and what you'd like to learn today.
Could we have some admin support in Bailey's room, please?
All right. I'm not able to see the chat, but if Brent, could you tell us some places that you're seeing today represented across our state?
Absolutely. We have Spartanburg,
Spartanburg
Spartanburg 3. Shout out to Miss Hodges. I've worked with her and her teachers up in Spartanburg 3. Miss Cargill, also from the Spartanburg area. We have Berkeley County, Dylan 3, Aiken, Amanda, Jamie Church, I know from Florence 1. I know Amanda as well. Lee County, Greenville, upstate is represented very well.
That's great. That's awesome, Brent. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's always good to see how the state gathers together, even on a Wednesday afternoon at 1 o'clock. So it's cool to see all of us kind of pull together as we are all going forward with the same purpose, which is what we're going to get to next. So one of our purpose today is just thinking about this fact that is constantly resonating in my mind. One piece of data that we got from SC Ready this past year is that only 54% of students in South Carolina are at meet or exceed on SC Ready and ELA. And when I think about that, it reminds me of flipping a coin, that a student's ability to be reading on grade level is up to the chance of flipping a coin in South Carolina. What can we do to move that dial forward so that we have a greater percentage of students in South Carolina who are reading on grade level? Well, that guides us to our purposes for today. The first purpose that we have is to explore close reading. And it's a strategy for text analysis in order to strengthen student success in reading comprehension. In the next section, you'll see some of the research that supports close reading as a strategy that really does get us to a deeper level of reading comprehension. But then additionally, we want to take a look at how over the next 4 webinars, we can use close reading, not just in ELA, but also in science, social studies, and math to improve our content comprehension. Because when we improve that reading comprehension, we improve all comprehension. So that's a lofty goal for us as a team this next couple weeks. But we want to think about what your purpose might be. What do you want to leave with or develop in your skill set today that I or our team can help support? Think about that for just a minute.
No, but I guess so.
And then I'd love for to see your answers in the chat. And Stephen, as those come in, can you share some of those?
Sure. So we have teachers looking for ways to support other teachers in literacy strategies. Put more tools in the toolbox.
Always, always. I love that.
Incorporating small group instruction with limited time. We hear the limited time. Helping visually impaired students.
I love that. I think we can integrate some of that into our subsequent sessions.
Looking for ways to support in all content areas, a specific request for math, how to use this strategy in math integration.
Yes, that's our last webinar of the series. It's going to be exciting. Very good. Okay. All right. And you will notice that that is just Brent, Stephen, and I representing this cross-content team today. However, our math education associate who supports elementary math was a thinking partner with this project, but math has their standards rollout coming up, so they are a little occupied as far as their human resource capacity right now. So she was a thinking partner and did help us develop our math session and approved it, but she's not able to join us in our live webinar sessions at this time. But we will definitely get to talking about some math and close reading. All right. Well, without further ado, let's get started. Let's begin with looking at what is close reading. Now, if you are a teacher in South Carolina, you're probably pretty familiar with the term close reading. But if you're not, that's okay. Let's do a little self-evaluation of a 1, 2, 3, 4 scale. How do you feel about close reading? What is it? Are you at a level 1 where you have no idea what close reading is? Close reading is getting up close to the page. Or are you a 2 that you have some understanding? Are you a 3? Maybe you have a working knowledge. Or are you a 4 where you've used or are ready to use close reading in your classroom intentionally? So drop those in the chat just so my team kind of knows where we are and our familiarity with close reading. I appreciate your transparency with giving yourself a score. Hopefully we'll see some growth in some of those scores. And if you're already at a 4 with close reading, I hope that you'll still be able to look at some ways where you can intentionally shift or validate some of your close reading strategy work that you're currently doing. All right. Well, we always love to ground any of our sessions and work in research or in data. So each of our sessions will kick off with kind of giving you a glimpse into the data review reports or some kind of data analysis of our content area. And so here I'm presenting to you the data review report for ELA 3 through 5. And one piece of data from the data review report. This is the review of the SC Ready data that was produced last year. One piece of data that we saw repeated over and over was the need for students to practice the skill in using text evidence, particularly this area right here, where a suggestion is given to teach students to first highlight important or relevant information in a text that supports their answer or response, and then refer explicitly to the highlighted information in their oral or written response. So when we think about that, this piece of data really lends itself to the idea of close reading, because students are being asked to look at text, find the important or relevant information in that text, and use that text in their responses. So, because of that data review report, this idea of using close reading as a strategy with intention was born. So now I want you to read this quote. I'll be quiet for just a minute, let you look at it. Pick out a phrase or a couple of words that stick out to you. And when I count to 3, I'd love for you to drop those in the chat. 1, 2, 3. Brent, tell me some things we're seeing in the chat.
All right, we are seeing complex text, significant gains in reading, proficiency, whether they're struggling or advanced. College and career readiness.
Awesome. Yes. And we are the division of college and career readiness.
Yep.
So this quote really speaks to our hearts. I love that someone picked out the use of complex text. Any of you that may be interested, we recorded a webinar on Monday on our text complexity process for the 2023 ELA standards. That might be something of interest for you all. I can share that recording out with you if you're interested. But I love that you also saw that text close reading of complex text helps whether a student is struggling or advanced. I think that speaks really closely to that small group work that you were mentioning in the chat earlier. Whether a student is struggling or advanced, we are able to see significant gains with the use of close reading. All right, let's take another look. Okay, thinking about this quote, I want you to consider your self-evaluation of your knowledge of close reading. This tells you what close reading means. Does this definition align with your understanding of close reading? All right, hopefully it does. Let's look at what those layers look like. So for South Carolina, and especially our Office of Assessment and Standards, we typically align ourselves to 3 steps in the close reading protocol. Those steps are the what, where you read for what is this text about and give your key ideas and details. The how, where we look at the craft and structure of a piece of text. And then we look at the why. How can this knowledge or these ideas be integrated within each other for synthesis? Let's take a closer look at that. When we consider giving students a text and we ask them to read it the first time, they are just reading for the what. This is where we set the purpose. This text is about Chadwick Boseman. We ask them to focus on the details. When was he born? What did he do? Why was he important? And then at the end, we debrief and discuss as a group. A great part of this is that collaborative discussion time where you ask those collaborative discussion questions and students are able to discuss as a whole group and maybe even in small groups. But a first read of a text should focus on the overall, what is this text about? In our close reading protocol, the second read or the second interaction with the same text is about the how. This is where students are asked to reread a specific excerpt of the text with a focus. Maybe there's a certain section of a passage. Maybe there's a table or graphic that you're asking them to intentionally focus on. Maybe there's a timeline, if we're looking at social studies, right, that we want them to take a look at. Or perhaps it's just a paragraph within a multi-paragraph passage. But you're rereading a specific excerpt with a focus. During that second read, you're also asking students to annotate the text. Now, one disclaimer that we like to put on this annotation of text is that it is done in a developmentally appropriate way. Let's stop just a minute and let's think about that. If we ask kindergarten students to annotate a text, that may look like we have a big book at the front of the room and we have a small group of students helping us to annotate the text. Maybe we're using highlight tape or highlight sticky notes. Maybe we're using some symbols like an exclamation mark to show something's important, or a smiley face to show that something made you feel a certain way, but annotating the text in a developmentally appropriate way. Now, as we move on into our grades maybe 2 through 5, we actually have students doing the annotation where they may write in the margins. You may give them access to those highlighters, right? With caution, because we all know students can highlight an entire passage just like that, right? I've definitely seen that in my classroom. But we give them those annotation expectations. And then we move maybe to the middle and high school where annotation takes an entirely different form and the students take ownership of how they would annotate the text. But the focus in the second read is really to reread with a specific purpose a section or excerpt of the text and annotate it. Now, when we reread for that specific purpose, we have to align that to our grade level indicators. And we'll see an example of that in just a few slides. And then, of course, after you have reread with that purpose, you annotated, then we come together and we do another debrief and discuss. All right. Then we move to our third read. The third read is the why. This is our synthesis read. When students read a text for the third time, it is their job to make connections and synthesize the information. Now, when I say make connections, that's not a connection of just how this text made me feel. The connections may be connecting a text to another text, connecting a text to something that reminds them of something else in the world or in their culture or in their society, or it may be making connections within that actual piece or passage. We also, again, ask them to annotate those connections, write it in the margins, or note it in a developmentally appropriate way inside the text. And then in that third read is where we move from those debrief discussion questions, we like to call them collaborative discussion questions in ELA, to moving more to those text-dependent questions. These are often cognitively pretty complex with expectations of 2 or 3 things that students might have to do. Here's an example. Maybe you are giving them a passage on Chadwick Boseman and you're asking them to use text evidence to explain the impact Chadwick Boseman had on African American history. It's pretty complex, right? Cognitively, they've got to read and comprehend the passage. They have to be able to find text evidence. They have to connect it to something culturally and then synthesize it in a written or oral response. It's pretty complex, right? But this is their third read through that Chadwick Boseman article. They should definitely be able to do that by then, right? If we've scaffolded well. Now, that was a lot of information. That was like drinking from a fire hydrant in about 14 minutes. So let's pause and ponder, and let's think about that 3 reading protocol for close reading. The first thing I want us to think about is, how did the research at the beginning of this section impact your feelings on close reading? Our data and our 2 quotes. The next question is, how have you done close reading in the past? Did your close reading protocol that you felt familiar with look similar to this? Did you have 3 reads? Did you have a certain process you went through? And then our third question, how could you shift your close reading instruction in light of our 3 read close reading protocol? Those are some pretty intense asks. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to think about those questions and respond in the chat. And I'm going to set myself a timer and be quiet for 5 minutes. Wait time's not my strength. So, all right, I'm setting my timer now. You have 5 minutes. You have about 2 more minutes to choose a question and draft your answer in the chat.
So there's a lot of great reflections and some great questions in the chat. And the beauty of some of the questions is that the strategy is adaptable to your instruction and to your kids. So one question is like, over what period should this 3 readings be done? If you're referring to a time period, that would depend on the complexity of the text and the task that you have at hand. We'll talk about that also in the social studies section. So there's appreciation for the research. Again, another great question about how long do students have? And I feel in time, certainly in social studies, as students become equipped with this skill, they'll become better equipped to go through those 3 stages on their own and kind of internalize this process. Oh, a shout out for the text Falling in Love with Close Reading by Lehman and Roberts. With a question about text complexity for about our littlest kids, K-5 and first grade. Appreciation for the strategy being chunked out. It's a very explicit step-by-step process. Having students make connections. Yes, this works as a whole group strategy.
Awesome. I feel like so many of those questions can be answered over our next few webinars.
Yeah.
A few that I do feel like we could answer now. With initially beginning of the close reading strategy, I like to teach it in 3 different class periods. So of a 20-minute mini lesson each time, with the idea that this will become more automatic for students. And then eventually they're going to internalize this close reading protocol and do it without my guiding them through it. Even, when they get to those summative assessments in the classroom, they're able to, oh my goodness, close reading is a strategy that helps me comprehend this better. Let me do this. I'm going to read it the first time and figure out the what, the second time, the how, the third time, the why, and then I can answer my questions. So yeah, it takes some intention the first round, at the first couple rounds even, but we do build that automaticity with our students, and then they're able to internalize that practice. So let's see it in an actual example, right? Every time that the ELA team goes out, we get the feedback that, hey, I love what you said. That was all good. But like, what does this really look like in instruction? So we want to share with you how you can use close reading in your ELA classroom. One link on your close reading landing page is to the close reading lesson plan. A version of this lesson plan will be used in all 4 of our webinars. So just know that this is just kind of like a graphic organizer for you with how we have structured or organized our close reading plans for use in the classroom. The lesson plan looks like about a section for your text title up at the top. Now, your text title could also be the title of a photograph, right? Because a photograph is text often. A timeline, a graphic, it could be a passage, it could be a book, it could be a chapter of a novel. Your text is really dependent on what your goal is in the lesson that you're teaching.
Very.
And then right underneath that, oh, sorry.
Sorry, thank you.
Then we have a section for the standards or indicators that you plan to teach with this close reading lesson plan. And then we just have boxes for your first read. What are the questions you're going to be asking? Your second read and your third read. Let's take a look at what that might look like. I've pulled out a close reading lesson plan with a text called Marisol McDonald Doesn't Match by Monica Brown. Now, if your district or if your school or district has adopted HMH into reading, this is a familiar text in the 3rd grade HMH curriculum. But if not, this is also just a book that you can get off of Amazon. Marisol McDonald Doesn't Match. And the premise of this book is that there's this girl, Marisol, and she refuses to wear clothes that match. She wants to always dress with how she's feeling, and she expresses herself in how she dresses and presents herself with her hair, her skin, her clothing, all that she feels is a reflection of her personality. So that's just a little bit of background on the book. Now, I identified 3 indicators from our 3rd grade ELA standards that I'd like to focus on with my lesson plans. And we're going to dive into those a little deeper in each of my reads. So here's my first read. Remember, this is when we just read for the what. The indicator that I selected for my first read is to explain how one or more characters develop throughout the plot. The 2 questions that I'm going to pose to my students, what we'll do is we'll read Marisol McDonald, and then we will we will read the Marisol McDonald text, and then I want them just to have those collaborative discussion questions about how does Marisol change throughout the story, and how do Marisol's friends change throughout the story. This can be done as a whole group. This can be done as partner discussions. This could even be done in a small group if I wanted to. But my main goal is for them to just understand how Marisol McDonald changed throughout the plot. All right. Then the next day, I'm going to come in and we're going to read a couple of excerpts from this book with this indicator in mind, AOR 1.2. Identify and explain the purpose of forms of figurative language to include metaphor, hyperbole, and idioms. So I found examples of that figurative language within my text, and I'm using those and pulling them out for my excerpts. Now, I may pull these out in a big book and we look at it together. I may pull these out on a piece of paper. Give me just a second, okay? I may pull these out on a printed piece of paper so that students can actually have those copies of the pages of the books to annotate. I may pull this up on my Promethean board and we annotate it that way. But the goal is to just pull that excerpt of the book and answer these 2 questions. How does Marisol's hair, or how does Marisol's hair is the color of fire help us understand Marisol? And then the other example is, how does Marisol's skin is the color of carrots help us understand Marisol? So here I am using collaborative discussion questions where we're taking a look at that figurative language, identifying it and explaining its purpose in regard to how the author's using that in this text. Any questions about that? Right? Then we move to our 3rd read. Now, the 3rd read is when we read the entire text again. So this might be the next day, and I'm going to focus my attention on AOR 3.1 for 3rd grade. That indicator says, determine and explain the differences between the perspectives of the characters and or between the characters and the readers, and the reader, which would be me or the student. So the tasks that I'm going to give them, I will give them a copy of the text, or we will have a copy of the text on our board, and we'll go through and we'll annotate with that intention in mind. So maybe we'll be looking at the different perspective that Marisol has from the other characters in the book. And it's pretty obvious. Marisol, all of the people in her class want her to wear certain colors. They want her to wear matching clothes. They want her to look like the rest of them. So that there's a huge perspective difference between the characters in this book. But then creating a comparison of Marisol's perspective and the reader's perspective. Are those the same? Are those different? And that's where a student will annotate their own feelings about that. And the 2 questions, these are more text-dependent questions. The 2 questions that we have them answer is, how is Marisol different from the other characters? And how is Marisol similar or different to you? All right. What are we thinking now? After seeing this close reading 3-read protocol done with a text and ELA indicators, what are you thinking? In the chat, I want you to drop just your initial responses to that question. What are you thinking? Is this something you feel like you could do? Does this feel familiar to what you've done in the past? Brent, share with us some answers that are coming through in the chat.
Absolutely. The power, someone has responded, the power is in the collaboration discussion.
Definitely, definitely.
And can you go back to also Mandy to the third read? Yeah, perfect. Yeah, there are the questions for that. See how the process helps with analyzing the text from different perspectives. I love that. Scaffolding is a scaffolding process to focus on deeper meaning. Again, a deeper dive. The questions get more challenging.
Definitely, definitely. We move from those really like right there answers to those like synthesis answers where you have to really dig deep or make comparisons or connections, especially the last question on this third read. How is Marisol similar or different to you? Explaining your different perspective or your similar perspective to the character, that is a huge step in synthesis and analysis.
Absolutely. And could you go back to the second
Sure.
read questions? There we go.
And this is where we pulled out quotes, from the text. In a perfect world, we would have like direct screenshots of the book. But here we just have the quotes for you. But this is how you kind of structure that discussion.
And if
And
I
we
can
see-
jump in, there was
Yeah.
a comment in the chat about concern about your students reading the same text multiple times. So what Mandy just highlighted is a great example of how that second read can really be targeted based on your instructional needs or the needs of that lesson.
And we should definitely be encouraging students to read multiple times with different purposes. I think that's how we build that reading stamina, but we also develop fluency by doing that. So multiple reads of the same text is a strong practice in our classrooms. All
And
right.
someone
Go ahead,
commented
Brent.
quickly on the direct link to the standards. So let me highlight that as
Yes,
well.
very much, very much. Well, we always want to keep those indicators in our mind as our focus and intention for our reads. And if we anchor each of the reads in an indicator, even if we anchor it in the same indicator for each of our reads, that helps us to make sure we're staying true to getting to the rigor and the depth of our indicators. So definitely a great practice. All right. Now it's time for us to have some discussion. We wanted to build in, before we move to close reading in math, science, and social studies, we wanted to build in a part where we can discuss what close reading may look like in those content areas, or what questions you have for us about how to facilitate close reading in the content areas. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to break in to breakout rooms in just a minute. I think you'll have about 15 minutes in your breakout room. Stephen will facilitate the discussion in the social studies room. Brent will facilitate the discussion in the science room, and I will facilitate the discussion in the math room. And our goal for this discussion time is just to hear from you on maybe what you've done with close reading in the past in regard to these content areas, or ways you think you might be able to use close reading in those content areas. Brent and Stephen, do you feel prepared to open up those breakout rooms? I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hop over to see if I can help you guys. All right.
Yeah, I can help us to probably assign some people to science that I know from science.
And you will be able to move to other rooms if you need to. I gave permission for people to be able to move to whatever room they need to feel comfortable in.
So you want to start off with shuffling and
Yeah,
then
that'd be
you can
great.
move. Yeah. Perfect.
And then you can move to the room where you feel comfortable.
Math is looking popular.
All right, go ahead and join those rooms.
Oops, sorry, I did not mean to do that. Sorry, if you got the closed room, it's my fault. I wanted to hit the button above, and I hit the other button to close the breakout room. So I'm gonna open them back up. That's my fault.
Wait, I just switched room.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
I apologize. That's on me. I hit the wrong button.
How do I go back to a room? I was in the middle of talking.
Yeah, I'm opening them back up.
Oh, okay. So, oh,
Is this the math room?
Hello, am I in the math room? No?
All right, so I think all the rooms are closing.
Yes.
All right, welcome
everybody
back. So glad you're all back with me. All right, let's close it out today. Is my microphone on? I sure hope so.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
it is.
I'm just over here talking away. All right. We will close our session today. The first thing I'd love to do is just to go back to that what is close reading self-assessment, where we scored ourselves on a 1, 2, 3, or 4. Take a little inventory of your heart today, and hopefully you've seen some growth in your close reading knowledge today. If you want to, drop your self-analysis into the chat. Let us know if you've seen some growth. Maybe you went from a 1 to a 3, or a 1 to a 2, or a 3 to a 4. Hopefully no one had any regression. We always hate to see that in our assessment, right? But hopefully you've seen some growth in yourself, that you do feel like you have a better understanding, or maybe you feel prepared to intentionally use close reading in your classrooms, or support teachers that do use it in their classrooms moving forward. Again, we have 3 more sessions coming up on this content, and we are your team who is supporting that. We have Stephen Corsini, who's our social studies contact. I'm Mandy Hawker. I'm your ELA. We have Brent White, who supports elementary science. And then we also have Dawn Jacobs, who is our elementary math support person. Dawn is not with us, but she has provided her contact information. If any of you have any math specific questions or want some math support, she's available for you. And finally, we're going to close out today with our feedback survey. It is incredibly important to me to provide time for you all to access our feedback survey link. I think Stephen's going to drop that in the chat. You can also find it on your close reading landing page, and provide me some feedback on this session today. We always want to get better at getting better here in the Office of Assessment and Standards. So if you will, just take the last 3 minutes of our time together today and give me a little feedback. My name is Mandy Hawker. The title of today was Close Reading in the Content Areas. And we just appreciated you spending an hour with us this Wednesday afternoon. Our team of Brent and myself and Stephen will listen and linger for just a few minutes. If you have any questions, I know Stephen's got to hop off to get to another obligation today, but we will listen and linger if you have any lingering questions. But thank you for joining us today and spending your afternoon with us. Y'all have a great Wednesday.
Thank you all for what you do every day. Thank you for being teachers.
And I just put the landing page link back in the chat for anybody that didn't get it the first time. And Stephen just kind of came after me.
We have the landing page well covered.
I love that. Thank you, guys.
Welcome.
All right. Any questions by anybody today? Any things we can answer or support? I see some requests to be able to access the slide deck, and I am changing that right now, so you all have viewing access. All right. Yeah, anyone with the link can view now, so that should help. Thank you. Good to see you, Marianne. Saw you just the other day. Thank y'all so much. I hope y'all have a great afternoon.
All right, bye. Thank you.
Thank you so, so much. I can't wait to get over here and read the chat because I haven't gotten to read it the entire time. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it's good. Everyone says
Oh,
thank
no.
you, wonderful information,
Okay. So
many
good.
things, and with the numbers from the on the post, lots of 3s to 4s.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
yeah,
Great.
it's great.
Great.
Yeah.
Right.
First one coming
Mandy,
in,
you said you shared the slide thing. How
Yes.
did I pull that up? That's in
It's
the.
on the landing page, Marianne.
Okay, so I need to go back to that. Okay.
Yes,
Got
just
it.
refresh your screen and it should give you access now.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Y'all have a great.
Bye. Good to
Thank
see you.
you.
You too.
thank you.
And Miss Walters had a question, I think.
Oh. Oh.
I thought she did.
Right. No more questions? All right. Y'all, we can debrief tomorrow.
Yeah.
If that sounds okay with y'all.
Yep. I'll go ahead and stop the recording and transcript.
Okay, I was going to tell all of you thank you. I'm sorry I was late.
Oh.
We were
No
doing. I was in the middle
worries. We
of
appreciate the
SLO.
great feedback.
SLO reviews with teachers, and I thought, oh Lord, I'm late for my meeting. But thank y'all. It was a great job all the way around. Thank you so much.
All right.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the feedback.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, y'all, I just sent you a link.